This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
I want to welcome you to this episode of Real Talk. You know, we're proud to take you behind the scenes. This is one of the things we do best, talking to the people that have been involved in something newsworthy, that have perspectives that have been gleaned from that behind the scenes look, that backstage privilege, the folks that have been a part of something special. And that's exactly who we're talking to in this episode of the show. As the Paris 2024 Olympic Games wrap, two of the photojournalists that were wowing viewers around the world with their captures are going to tell us what the experience was like. Leah Hennel and Candice Ward coming up in 30 seconds. Want to let you know that this episode of the show is presented by Business Career College, and there's a very important call out to those of you that are working as financial managers, financial advisors, and senior finance professionals. It's the CDAA certification. Are you familiar with this? This is the Certified Digital Asset Advisor, and one of the reasons why this is most significant right now, of course, is as we look at how Canadians' investment habits are changing. In particular, the fact that the new generation of investors, 75% of them say they're interested in adding digital assets to their finance portfolios. There's implications for financial advisors, obviously. To advise your clients effectively, you need to go beyond these self-teach videos on YouTube and social media reels and talk to and learn from professionals so you build a stable foundation that'll future-proof your own career. Why not do it through Business Career College? They're already a leader in financial training, have been since 1997. You can go to businesscareercollege.com to learn more about the CDAA. And if you're signing up for the course, make sure you use the promo code Ryan20. They'll knock 20% off that CDAA course with Ryan20 at businesscareercollege.com. Well, I guarantee if you were paying attention to the Paris Olympic Games, and who wasn't, if you were watching them on TV, if you were seeing them on social media, Instagram, Twitter, wherever else, you were watching and seeing the work of our two guests today on the show. Leah Hennel is an award-winning photojournalist based out of the beautiful city of Calgary. She's been working as a staff photographer for more than 20 years for dailies there. She does freelance work. She's been doing corporate assignments. She's covered 2 Paralympic Games, the Pan Am Games, and 4 Olympic Games. Candice Ward is an Indigenous photographer who specializes in sports photography. She began her career in news. She was the team photographer for the Calgary Hitmen, Roughnecks, Wranglers, and the Stamps up until 2022, and that's up until she, of course, moved to Las Vegas, where she's now living, covering some of the biggest sporting events in North America. We're thrilled to have both of you on the show. Thank you so much for making time for us. Candice, you're in the Pacific time zone. You even woke up an hour earlier than we did to do this. Thank you very much. How was Paris? Must have been absolutely unbelievable.
Honestly, I just tell everyone it was incredible. I had a great time.
Have you ever done anything? Have you covered the Olympic Games before? I know Leah's covered 4. How about you?
No, this was my first. I did Pan Am in October, November with Leah and the COC. But this was my first Olympics.
Leah, you've covered 4 of the games. How does the Paris Olympic experience stack up to the other 3?
Oh, amazing. Even better because there was fans and family could come. So having a crowd was, it just made it that much more special. Oh, and I have to shout out to my buddy Candice. Having Candice with me is always a blast.
Yeah, is it the 2 of you were roommates? Is this right?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that when we were talking to both of you about coming on and doing the show, just because we were just wowed by the images, and I want to thank you for sharing some of them. And our audience, obviously, I'll tell our podcast listeners, this is an episode you may want to watch on YouTube because you can see some of the stuff that we're talking about. But how cool that the 2 of you got to take this in professionally, working different venues, I'm sure, but then at the end of the day, come back and debrief with each other. What was that like, Candice? You're already laughing.
That's the best part. It's the debrief at the end of the night. It was like, it made the experience so much better because you kind of feel a little isolated through the day. like you're alone. You're not alone. You're with other people, but some days maybe you're not talking to anybody at the venues. You're maybe, maybe there's nobody you really know, and sometimes you're not feeling overly social, but you're witnessing really cool things and you're experiencing something really cool. So to have somebody that gets it at the end of the day and it knows what your day was like and debrief and like the little, I couldn't find this, or my driver this or like all these little things. It was nice to talk to somebody who could relate exactly to what you experienced in the day. It was the absolute best. I loved it.
So Leah, how does it work with like who's assigning you? Who are you all? Are you working for the IOC? Like, how does it all work? People nerds like me want to know.
So we're working for the Canadian Olympic Committee, so Team Canada, and there's 5 of us photographers on the team, and so we're assigned by one of the photographers, Darren, and we just go to our venues. Like I say to people covering the Olympics, it's like it's a marathon, right? You have to eat when you can, sleep when you can. It's constantly going into a venue, maybe a sport you've never covered before, and trying to find where to go, how to get access. Candice and I and a lot of the photographers we talked to, we were wearing the gray vests. And if you have the blue vest, you get better access. You're the bigger agencies like Reuters and Getty, and we can't go to those positions. So we're really working with what we're given, trying to find, the photo and just documenting Team Canada, the human emotion of the winning, maybe not doing as they had thought their outcome would be, but it's amazing. But I have to say, having the fans and seeing athletes' families there, I think that's what made it more special.
Oh man, I will let people know as well, and we'll put this in the show notes for the podcast and YouTube, that they can check out a lot of both of your work, not just the Olympic Games, of course, either on your Instagram accounts at Leah Hennel Photo and Candice Ward Photography. Leo, you snapped this one of I got to say he's like my new favorite Canadian athlete, Mo Ahmed, like unbelievable. The guy barely finishes 4th in the men's 10,000 meters, but ran just an unbelievable race. He did a post-race interview with Devin Haru on the CBC that I think endeared him to millions of people, to say the very least. But can you talk to us about this image? He's got his arm around who I believe is the bronze medal finisher. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the look on his face. That might be
the gold.
Oh, is it the gold?
Yeah, that might be the gold medal. But again, I might be wrong. You have to remember, like, we're in a stadium, and when we're photographing, we don't hear what is all going on. We're just waiting for that moment when they cross the finish line. So you're trying to concentrate on that. So you don't really hear what like the outcome is until a little bit later. But yeah, like the human emotion, he was in front for a long time. Mo was, and the other Canadian photographer beside me, Nick, we thought that it was going to be a different outcome, but just that he had hugged the other athlete, it just shows how there's this bond between athletes, right? Almost similar to sometimes like when Candice and I are working together, there's a bond between us as some photographers. We help each other out and support each other.
How would that work? Talk to us, like, for people that have never photographed an Olympic Games, which will be 99.9% of the people listening to this episode. What does teamwork look like behind the lens, Candice or Leah, whoever wants to take it?
I have a great example, and I'm sure Candice could, yeah. But I have anxiety, and I get nervous when I don't know a venue, and Candice knows this about me. I have to be there early, but obviously you can't sometimes because you're covering sometimes 2 or 3 events a day. So one of our colleagues, Kevin Light, got up early the one morning with me. I think I was covering marathon, and he walked me through a strategy of what I could do. So that to me is teamwork. Having Candice support me when I was upset, just a shoulder to cry on sometimes. It's amazing. The teamwork is the best part for me of covering the Olympics.
How about you, Candice?
Honestly, teamwork is super important. Like I said, it's kind of isolating in a way. So like having people that understand what you're doing, and I'll give a Kevin example too, because we love Kevin so much. I was working swimming, and swimming ends quite late. So it would end like around 11:15 sometimes. And he sent me a message and it said, "Do you want me to pick up dinner for you so you have like a hot meal when you get back?" And he's like, "I'll go out at 11 and go get it, and then it'll be waiting for you when you get back."
Amazing.
And like something like that, it seems so little and like, but it's a big deal. Like I hadn't really eaten all night, and then to have like warm food that was not like some bar of some kind, just like jam in and then like go, get up early and go to something else was like, you don't even know, like having a teammate that considers you and thinks about what your schedule's like, because they get it. And then having Leah to just like not talk about work sometimes with, because everything is just work. And so to just talk nonsense or laugh about something dumb or, that the mental health part of that is just, it's, I don't know, invaluable.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It must be interesting, like at night, the two of you get back to your apartment, and like how many battery charging stations are there? How much photo editing is happening on the fly? Like, can you talk to us just about how many lenses are you carrying? How many bodies are you? Can you just talk to us about the gear and the logistics and how you make it all happen? You probably have to have 5 or 6 different lenses at least, right?
Oh, yeah. And a shout out to Sony Canada. So Sony Canada supplied Team Canada photographers with gear.
That's cool.
So we couldn't have done this without them. Like the big lenses, yes, the 400 2.8, 600 2.8. But our rooms were small. So sharing a room with another photographer, and we're on different times. So if Candice is out working late, I might be getting back and getting up early. So like we're kind of, you don't want to wake the other person up. You're trying to juggle that. And then batteries charging everywhere, editing, it's a lot. Like, I think like other photographers back home who haven't covered Olympics would send us, some of us, like photos like, why didn't you get this photo? And that's when it's like, well, we weren't there or we can't get that access. So I think a lot of photographers who want to cover the Olympics think that you can go anywhere but you can't. So that's hard. That's hard for us. So at night, we would debrief about, oh, we wish we were here or yeah. And I had a camera that went down when I was working, but luckily, again, I had 2 other bodies to work with. So yeah, stuff like that definitely happens. But it is a lot of gear. I'm still in Paris. I fly back on Sunday, and I'm happy to just have one camera with me now.
Yeah. What's it like in Paris right now? I mean, it's obviously the city's busy all the time. It's freaking Paris. Yeah. But does it feel like the Olympics were there just a couple of weeks ago, last week?
Not really. I mean, like the signs are still there because Paralympics are coming in a couple of weeks, right? So they're gearing up for that. A lot of tourists, but it's nice just to like walk around and I guess kind of be lazy.
Yeah, no kidding. You've earned the right. You deserve it. Candice, you looked like you kind of, if I picked up on your body language, you were shaking your head when I said you must have had 5 or 6 lenses. Do you have like 1 or 2 real trusty ones? Do you have a different style?
Well, I think I only had 4 the whole time. But I really only used 3. I didn't really use my wide that often. Just I did for like, venue type, scenic type stuff like that, because that venue is insane. For
our podcast listeners, Johnny's showing us now a shot you took of fencing. Where is this? Is unbelievable.
I feel like that's Leah's.
Is that Leah's photo?
That might be, yeah. But it's, what was the name of that place again?
Oh, the Grand Palais. Oof.
Yeah.
That place is beautiful. I didn't send any photos because I wasn't sure what licensing and our copyright was, so I didn't send anything.
There I go, just did it.
Yeah,
well,
sorry.
we'll let's just say it. So you guys are like these images then are courtesy of the Canadian Olympic Committee, correct? Right? We want to recognize sources. Correct. We're talking to Leah Hennel and Candice Ward, who were there shooting for the COC. But yeah, so you said you didn't use your wide very much. You must have obviously a couple of go-tos.
I use my 70-200 most of the time. Yeah. Like, the Sony 70-200 because they supplied us gear. And then the 400 a lot. We're kind of not super close sometimes to use the 24-70. Like the positions, like if you look in that picture that Leah took, like you're not that close to the
those are fans in front of us, right? Like, so they'll stand up and block your photo. So
right. Yeah. You have, it's interesting. Like, and I'll, Johnny, if we could share my screen. So I'm going to show both of your Instagram accounts because both of you shared shots of beach volleyball. Leah, this beautiful wide shot with the Eiffel Tower in the background. Like, give me a break. That's unbelievable. And then Candice, you have this amazing capture of a Canadian athlete. She's celebrating. She's pumping her fist. And your caption on it, which I thought was really intriguing. You say, I love a good reaction and a clean background. You've shot her with that beautiful white sand behind her. There's obviously, like, when you're shooting sport photography, you're thinking of composition, and there's something special about the way that your brains work as creative artists and as experienced professionals. But how much of it are you thinking like big picture, like you want to get the Eiffel Tower in there? Are you thinking about clean backgrounds ahead of time, or are you looking at it after the fact going, oh, that turned out really great?
I think it's a little more intentional. Backgrounds can be tricky because you're in a spot and you can't move a lot of the time. So you just kind of have to work with what you have. Like, there's certain venues and certain events you go to, you can't move. So like swimming, they just have to kind of come into your frame, and they only pop up once in a while. So you're kind of at the mercy of the moment versus the background. Other places you can be a little more intentional with your background. Like that beach volleyball photo. Leah was down low during that game. We were shooting that one together, but I got there late, not on purpose. It was a flex day for me, we'll say. So I didn't have to be there. But I went up high and was shooting low with a 400 just to kind of get something a little bit different. So yeah, she's ground level and I'm up high on that one, so that we had something totally different. Because you do not want to be teammates and sitting side by side. That's the biggest waste of resources that there is. Like, you can't, that's just
and this way we cover more, right? We cover more angles and stuff wherever we can go. But like I said, we're in the gray vest, right? And if you're working with the bigger agencies in the blue vest, you could pretty much go, I think, Candice, almost anywhere, right? Like,
depends on the venue,
whatever they say, right? Yeah.
I just suit up. You can't suit up and start playing beach volleyball in a blue vest. You have to stick to.
Unfortunately, as a matter of fact,
I think I'd be really bad at that.
Yeah, we were talking about how we think, we're not the first ones to have this idea, that there should be a civilian competing in every single Olympic event to provide some perspective on how much better the athletes are than the average person. I mean, you guys have an up close and personal view of the world's biggest stage, the world's biggest sporting events. Leah, I would imagine super cool for you. Like, you always, as a girl, you always you had Olympic aspirations, didn't you, for the Winter Games?
Oh yeah, I thought I was going to be a figure skater. I think I figure skated competitively till I was 21.
Amazing.
I was terrible, but I thought I was really good. But yeah, so when I ended up photographing, like, especially the Winter Olympics, it was kind of full circle moment. It's exciting. And I mean, even the athletes, I mean, Candice and I talked about this, but even the person who crosses, let's say if it's a finish line kind of like last, I mean, they've still worked their whole life and they're amazing Olympians. They're better than I will ever be. So it's amazing to see, just that, again, I go back to that human emotion. But yeah, I wished I was standing on a podium, but
You had sent along some images of Summer McIntosh, who just like had an unbelievable game, 17 years of age. She comes home with 3 gold medals. She wins a silver medal as well. I mean, just unbelievable. Every Canadian knows her name right now. For a lot of people, she would probably be the story of the games. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different answers for that, and there's no right or wrong answer. Candice, you shot this amazing capture of Skylar Park, who won the bronze in Taekwondo for Canada. Candice, did you have like a favorite Olympic moment? Can you narrow it down? Was there one athlete or one result or one storyline that like you'll never forget?
I got to shoot women's basketball on my birthday. So that was like a big thing for me. Like, I really, really wanted women's basketball. And I got it on my birthday. So it was like such a great day. And then the men's team the next day, which was also like incredible. I love basketball a lot. So that was really special. It's hard to kind of narrow down, like, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to narrow down like a really like pinpoint a specific thing.
You've shot a ton of pro athletes, obviously, and you've shot a lot of different pro sports. What was it like to be there? And obviously, I love SGA and the Canadian basketball team, but like to shoot the American team for you, that must have been wild. Steph Curry, LeBron James, like some of the biggest stars in the game, KD, Anthony Davis. Do you get yourself, like, does it do something for you as a photographer, even though you've been in the game for a long time?
Well, that was actually shot in Vegas. What you're showing now
this was that showcase, right? The game against Canada.
Yeah, that was insane. Like it's more just like seeing LeBron and Steph on like this was a showcase, so it wasn't as like big of a deal to me as it I would have liked it to be, but to see them on a competitive team, not like an all-star game or something like that, and competing together was just like, when are you going to see that again? Like really competing together towards like a goal, not like I said, not like an all-star game or something where it doesn't really matter. Um, that is just like such a cool kind of moment. Um, I'm more like, sounds funny, but I am more a fan of the women's game. Uh, so like watching like Asia Wilson to me is the best basketball player out there.
So good.
Like she's she's super professional in person, great to work with, but watching her play is so special. And so like watching her come up, like, because I've been in Vegas for a bit now, watching her like her popularity and her skill and like being recognized as the player that she is, being able to document that, and then seeing her play and like document her play a little bit in Paris, that was pretty special. And I know she's not Canadian, like I understand that. But that's a pretty like that's pretty historic is watching her like coming up. So that's like a really kind of cool thing.
Yeah, very cool thing. I had a chance to, I wasn't in Paris, wasn't shooting photos, wasn't working, but to meet the Plouffe twins, Michelle and Catherine of Edmonton, just before they left, like 2 weeks before they left for Paris. And it's as they're competing in the 3-on-3, it's like once you've like, I don't know if you find this in your careers, but if you've had a chance to meet somebody personally and like shake their hand and to wish them well and to tell them you'll be watching and tell them you'll be cheering for them, and then they come running out of the dressing room and do the big entrance onto the outdoor court wearing Team Canada, and I'm sitting there and like you kind of, I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but you almost kind of feel like you're part of the experience. Like you're there cheering for them. You talked to them when they were back in Canada. You know how much they want to win this thing. Do you find yourself doing that, Leah, too? Like this isn't just, I mean, first of all, you're shooting for Team Canada, so that kind of adds a cool element to it. You are Canadian. You're over there. I mean, I would imagine you're not cheering while you're shooting, but are you a little bit more emotionally invested in this gig than you would be otherwise?
Oh, 100%. Like sometimes I have to pinch myself that I'm here and I get to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the hammer throw, I was there for Cameron Rogers and Ethan Katzberg. And so when they both won and seeing Cameron run up to her parents and like hugging, I was just like, oh, this is the most amazing. I mean, who knew? Hammer throw, right? Canadians. And that they both got gold. It was amazing. It was, yeah, yeah. But I mean, the whole time I think about this after, in that moment, I'm actually being like, don't miss the photo. Make sure it's in focus. Like I'm actually more nervous and missing it. And then I'll think about it after, about how amazing it was to be there. Like, and Summer McIntosh is 17. She's the same age as my niece, right? So I was just, this is so bizarre.
Oh, that's so amazing. Leah, I want to ask you the same question. Did you have a favorite moment of the games? You're probably choosing from like 100 of them, but...
Oh. You know what? I don't, I guess my story is funny is when I landed here, then I think as a day later, I was sent to Rome to photograph our flag bearer, Andre DeGrasse. So I met him in a parking lot and took his photo. So that was I like that moment because I had like a one-on-one moment with him and his wife, and that was pretty fun.
What's he like in person? He seems to be kind of like a bit of a soft-spoken guy, is he?
He's great. Yeah, he was wonderful. He gave me time. I mean, all the athletes, I've never had an issue. It's been amazing.
I think there's something, I don't know, there's just something about Olympic athletes. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, I guess, but many of them, I mean, everybody knows Andre DeGrasse. Obviously, his relationship with Usain Bolt was always very special, and I think he's just got a really unique quality to him. And boy, the way he anchored that 4x100 was incredible. But Olympic athletes have this, there's almost like this dichotomy where a lot of them are like the best in the world at what they do. And at the same time, like a lot of people don't really know their names, and a lot of them have second jobs, and like there's kind of a humility that comes with the gig for probably 80 or 90% of the athletes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, here's a story. So Candice and I like our Kevin stories. So our teammate Kevin Light on our photo team is actually an Olympic gold medalist from 2008 Beijing in rowing, 8-man rowing.
No way.
Yeah, so he's a photographer now. So yeah, he gets it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's so cool. So the two of you are kind of winding down now. Leah, are you sticking around to shoot the Paralympic Games, or are you on your way home sometime soon?
No, I wish I was staying, but no, I'm home on Sunday night.
All right, on. And Candice, you're already back at it in Vegas?
Yeah, tomorrow's a big day. I have Aces in the morning and then the Raiders in the evening. So I have a stacked weekend.
I feel like you're living the dream right now. Are you? I mean, you're living in Vegas. You're shooting at your NFL, Olympics, like NBA show. I mean, like, this is kind of what you always dreamed of, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I'm not really doing what I want to do yet. Like, it looks cool. Looks cool to everyone on the outside, but it's not really what I want to be doing. I want to be with a team. I want to be focused in on one thing, documenting. I want to just be documenting one team, like have a singular focus and really dig into like telling the story of one team or one organization and, you know, being involved in that and selling the emotion and selling that brand. That's more what I want to be doing at this point in my career.
What would be, if you could choose any team, any sport, any league, what team would you be the official photographer for?
I'm not going to narrow down a team. I really love NLL. Like I really love lacrosse. And NHL. I think between the two, it's not that I'm most comfortable. It's just that I don't know. I feel like I do better work. But for character, I really love football. Like I miss the CFL a ton. The character of the guys is just so diverse. And there's so many more stories to tell. I really do miss the CFL a lot. I do think that league is pretty special. The access is usually quite good. Guys are very approachable, friendly, easy to work with. I really do miss that a lot.
So cool. I love when somebody's like returning from the Olympic Games and saying, I'm not yet where I'd like to be. That is a little insight into your ambition right there, my friend. I love that. Leah, can I ask you something personal? I hope you don't mind. It's been a tough year for you too, right? Your dad, you lost your dad. I hope it's okay if I ask you about it, but you headed over to Paris with a heavy heart.
Yeah, he died 3 months before I arrived here. So dealing with all that stuff, and just a bit of background, like my mom has passed away, my brother, so it's just me in that, original childhood growing up unit. So Candice would help me because I'd be like, I really want to text my dad this photo because, he kept me grounded and told me how awful or I could do better on a photo. Like he would always critique my photos. So I miss texting him. So Candice always gave me, was good advice and all that stuff, like someone to talk to who understood. Yeah. Yeah.
And your dad used to he would be somewhat critical of your work in a good way, in a way to lift you up. But like you got feedback from him all the time.
All the time. Yeah. He was funny that way, but yeah, he kept me humble. That's for sure.
Was he a photographer?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not into sports, not a photographer, but he liked to give his dad advice. So I thought about that a lot, just coming to the Olympics and working and photographing, that when athletes have the same sort of personal, something happens, like maybe a parent or a loved one dies before they're competing. So I always think about like how hard it must be for them not to have someone there.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you both for talking to us. I've been a big fan of your work for a long time. Both of you know that. I try to tell you as much as I can. Your talents extend well outside of athletics, photographing athletics, but boy, did you both nail it at the Olympic Games. I was just flipping through both of your Instagrams in getting ready for this, and obviously have been for the past couple of weeks. Candice, how's this for a flex? Candice posts a photo of herself pointing at the Eiffel Tower, talking about how much she always dreamed of going to the Olympics and representing Canada. Who leaves a comment on the photo, but arguably the greatest Canadian Olympian of all time, Claire Ann Hughes, who says, I'm so stoked for you, Candice. I can't wait to see all the moments you capture in the way only you can. Congratulations and thank you. Now that is a flex. Very well done. Candice Ward and Leah Hennel, two incredibly talented photographers there covering the Paris Games for Team Canada. Thanks for talking to us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you got it. How cool is that, man? It was kind of a nice treat for us that they were able to submit so many photos and take a spin through them. Were you feeling like what some other people were feeling? I saw some notes in our live chat here. People are saying they're feeling Olympic withdrawal.
Oh, so am I. Yeah.
Are you feeling it too?
Well, it was weird how we had. Well, it wasn't weird, but it just coincided with our week off. This was the first Olympics, I think, in the last like 3 that I can remember. I sat and watched hours of it. I just turned on CBC. I turned on, NBC. I think those were the 2 that covered the games the best from the States and Canada.
Yeah.
And it was just, man, the drone footage, just the way the games are brought to us now, when I remember like back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was still mesmerizing, but now it's delivered so well. I mean, seeing that teardrop close up in like 4K, whereas before it was like a wide shot, and the stuff Candice and Leah do now, that is just, you feel like you're right there. I got so emotional this game. I'm saying, I think the delivery, the storylines with Canada, someone said, Canada's now a hammer throwing nation. Canada's always, prominent in the Winter Olympics, but we really put a stamp on so many different places in the Summer Olympics. Hammer throw, pole vaulting, breaking. We get gold medal in the breaking, swimming, obviously the DeGrasse storyline.
Yeah.
Like everything, just like Canada was just sprinkled everywhere. And even when you turned on NBC, where usually it's just all about all America because they always destroy it and everything.
Yeah.
I saw so much about Canada and I was like, wow, this. And I got really emotional. I got really into it. And part of that is because of people like Leah, like Candice, like
said.
the producers, like the TV people, the cameramen who are delivering this stuff so much better than we used to get it before, right?
Yeah, my buddy Jason Nelson, let me see if I can call this up on the fly, but you and I worked with Jason for many years with the Edmonton Oilers, and I worked with him on Breakfast Television, and the guy is just like an incredibly talented photographer. But check this photo that he just posted on his Facebook, Johnny. So he's got back, he's just returned back from shooting at the Paris Games. And he's got his little, kind of whatever you want to call it, memorabilia.
Oh, he's got the sand.
Yeah, he's got his memorabilia corner in his home. And so he's got framed pucks from Winter Games. He shot hockey there in Sochi and Beijing and Pyeongchang and Vancouver. And then he's got the sand from the beach volleyball courts where he shot in London in 2012, in Rio in 2016, in Tokyo in 2020, and then in Paris. Yeah. How cool is that,
That's
right?
amazing.
And that's a guy where, like... Oh, Jason, I'm about to say this. Jason, I'll owe him a beer for saying this, but it's like nobody out there knows his name.
Yeah.
But he is one of the most skilled live camera operators you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
He's the guy at the Oilers games that you see with the camera on his shoulder in the corner, right down on the glass, trying to keep up with Connor McDavid.
Oh yeah.
Through a viewfinder. Like, are you kidding me? The talent and the skills and the abilities of photographers like Leah and Candice that go over to the games, they are the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason why they're there.
And the post-production, let's give a shout out to all the work they do after, because everyone thinks you just go out, you snap a pic, you have a high def camera. But I know as a technical producer, the amount of hours you put in afterwards.
Yeah.
Because when you shutter and take 1,000 photos and then you have to find 2 of them that are going to be amazing to put in a magazine or in an article or on a website.
Yeah.
And then, editing it to get it perfect, but don't make it look like you edited it too much.
Yeah.
But to bring out what you want in the photo, and that whole thing, it's really art. It's really art. That's something I didn't understand about photography when I was younger. And as I got older and started doing editing myself, I was like, wow, this really is an art form. You don't just go out there and wait for a perfect moment and get it. It's so much more hours of work after that.
Yeah, Candice was generous to me, I think, in answering my one question where I'm like, do you like think about your shots or do you snap them and see them? She goes, no, there's a little more to it than that. I was like, as I'm asking the question, I'm like, why am I asking this stupid question? But it's just like some of the stuff they come up with. It's so good.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder. Justin says he totally agrees with you, by the way, in the chat. He says, I usually don't get invested in the Summer Olympics. He says, but I was sucked in by the great coverage, the great storylines. Vamp Fashions, I like this point, says, so why is it that people watch obscure sports for like 3 weeks, but then just completely ignore those same athletics for 4 years. Amateur sport could use some fans and some financial support. And it is true, right? Like you see, cities big international events. You got the World Track and Field Championships, or you got something going on, and you see like maybe the Worlds is a bad example, but you'll see like relatively sparse attendance. You know what I'm saying? And then the Olympics come on, and then it's like you can barely get a ticket to some of these events that you really, quite frankly, don't know much about. Like I know more about hammer throw now than I did 3 weeks ago because Canadian athletes excelled at it, because they were looking like, we might hit the podium in those events. So all of a sudden you want to level up your knowledge on that sport. But Vamp's right. Like why all of a sudden, if there was a hammer throwing event going on in Edmonton a month from now, I'm probably not going to be there.
Well,
but why not?
Maybe
what
now, though.
What would bring
Maybe
me there
now, though.
is if our gold medal duo was there. Then I'd go there just to like pump them up and cheer for them. But
that's the other thing. That's why I was talking back to. That's why I feel like this is. I said this before. Some people disagree. This was the best Olympics delivered to my eyes and my brain in my lifetime. I think it's the best. If you're a millennial, maybe even if you're a Gen Xer, this was the best. The beauty of Paris, the backdrop of that. I can only imagine Candice and Leah being there. Like the most Michelin star restaurants in the world are in Paris. Like the food, the romance, the whole thing. And that's aside from everything that was going on with the Olympics. But being drawn in, like maybe there's kids now who saw this and are like, I didn't even know what hammer throw was.
Totally.
Now. But Ethan is my hero. Cameron is my hero now.
There might be little boys and girls who are complaining a little less about their swimming lessons after watching Summer McIntosh in the pool, right? Jeremy says I have some challenges with the Olympics, but as a skeptic, he says I have to admit this was a great games with some fantastic stories. He says it makes me wonder. Jeremy, a former city councillor in Calgary, Jeremy Farkas, says it makes me wonder where Calgary would be if we were 18 months away from hosting. You remember that, obviously the plebiscite and all that, and I'd be curious to know. People are asking Jeremy in the chat, well, what don't you like about it? He goes, like corruption, sexual abuse, doping, cost. There's a lot of reasons to argue against the Olympic Games,
of
for
course
sure.
But
maybe let me just say argue against your city or your nation hosting the Olympic Games, because they cost billions and billions and billions of dollars. Typically those costs aren't recovered. But then I guess you kind of look at a cost-benefit analysis and like, what are you trying to achieve? What infrastructure do you take out of it?
Well, it's legacy.
What does it do?
Right?
What does it do to your? Here's an interesting one. Like I'm supposed to say, what does it do to your city or your nation's reputation? But also, is that like meaningful? Like Pyeongchang. Like could I point out on a map where it was now versus before when they had the games, or would I change my holiday plans to go there instead? I don't know. I mean, if people saw Vancouver in 2010, they saw Whistler.
I was just going to say,
and they live over in
you
Sweden.
gain things like infrastructure and other things that last lifetimes. So, I mean, I don't think anyone's ever a city's ever made millions of dollars from the Olympics. You look at it, like especially this one in Paris, like when the opening ceremony and the closing ceremonies were going on and the fireworks and I see all the streets shut down and just the amount, I'm like, this closing ceremony alone must have been like $1 billion. It's just astronaut. I'm looking at the production and I'm like, what you must have paid for that screen behind that guy while he's talking alone must have been.
People don't think about that kind of stuff.
It's ridiculous.
No,
it's
for
insane.
sure. Vamp, is this true? Vamp says lived across the street from where the Canadian synchronized swimming team was housed. So 7 of them came into the convenience store and couldn't afford the treats they wanted. Says I bought all of them what they wanted. They have no cash. I think it would, it's a tough slog for a lot of these. Some of these athletes have sponsorships that make it a little easier for them. I don't think any of them. I mean, maybe with the exception, if you win the men's Olympic gold 100 meters, or if you're like, I'm trying to think of like what are like the highest profile gold medal wins would you say in the Olympic Games?
Well, obviously the athletics are probably the highest.
Men's and women's 1 and 200 meters.
If you're the fastest man or woman in your country or the world, it's usually Jamaicans.
The marathon winner probably makes some good dough. Like I'm talking endorsements. But I saw I think I saw CBC showed the stat that was it the men's 4x1 the relay team that won. I think they said that they each get like $88,000 from the Canadian Olympic Committee, which is like a nice little infusion of cash. But also if you train 4 years and you only get it if you win gold, 88 grand over 4 years on top of whatever you're making is like, I mean, it's a nice little chunk. Who wouldn't want to have 88 grand land in their bank? But it's not like they're getting rich. I think the number of pro athletes that are getting absolutely loaded off the Olympics
is none.
would be a shorter list. Right?
But it's different every year. Like Paris chose to give, I think, like the host country can give money or they can't. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And then your home country can as well. Like I was looking, China made like a ridiculous amount of money because they pay. If you win a medal for China, they give you dough, right? But I think Paris was also giving like 50 grand per gold medal or so. I was reading somewhere, I don't know exactly, but Paris was giving cash as well as the countries. And then I saw a list and it was like, China, and then way down here was like Canada. But then, I saw Alicia Newman, the pole vaulter who got bronze, taking heat everywhere for being on OnlyFans. But it's like, man, go girl. Yeah. Support your dream. Yeah. Like who are people to look down on her for, like and
what's the justification for criticizing an athlete for being on OnlyFans? That because she's representing Canada that she shouldn't be able to bear all? Is that kind of the argument?
I don't know, but I heard in an interview she's doing what she can to achieve her dream, and she's 30, and that dream window is almost closed, and she did what she had to do, and she won a medal. So screw it. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, more power to you if you want to be on OnlyFans, and second of all, if you don't want Canadian athletes on OnlyFans, maybe we should pay them better.
First of all, it's not overtly, not that I went looking, but like it's been in articles, and you click a link. It's not overtly sexual.
You were just for you, it's like you were on OnlyFans and you just stumbled upon her account.
This was a big story, and people were commenting under every post of hers, and I thought, like, this is bullying, right? So I went and looked. It's not overtly sexual stuff. It's some sexy photos of her, whatever. But like, she's paying her bills. She's paying to use the gym. She's paying to like get new shoes, like to pole vault and try and achieve her dream, right?
This
Who cares?
A good point from Jeremy, who follows up, says even the most hard-ass cynics out there have to acknowledge that given the state of the world, we need things like the Olympics now more than ever.
100%. That's what I thought while it was going on. I was like, with all the crap in the world
true.
that leading up to this, it was such a breath of fresh air to just watch people like giving it all, those twitch muscles in their legs. And like we said, first place, second place, never heard of you. Yeah. Like it's just the window to get glory is just this big, and you're watching it happen live. It's absolutely amazing.
100%. Yeah, this is, I love this from Shalane. Says, the pride of your town or your school sports, the pride in sports teams is huge, she says. Nobody will remember who the 4A champs of 1993 are, except for my husband, she says, who played for Leduc High School that year. Shout out Leduc. She says, but pride in our teams is a great thing. I love that. I saw somebody earlier in the chat that sort of took a crack at Pierre Poilievre, whether it's fair or not, I don't know. I saw some people saying that Pierre Poilievre hasn't congratulated the Canadian athletes, or Pierre Poilievre hasn't said anything about the Olympics, and then they're writing about, well, it's because then he'd have to acknowledge the CBC and that the CBC is doing a great job or whatever. and you know what?
They did an amazing job. It was incredible.
Like my honest response to that is I don't know if Pierre Poilievre said anything about the athletes or not. You know why? Because during the Olympic Games, I didn't pay attention to Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau one little bit. It was absolutely wonderful.
I did see Trudeau call Summer McIntosh. That was a nice little phone call I saw on Instagram. Yeah. But Pierre, he's pretty much an Olympic athlete too. I don't know if you've seen him flipping tires.
Yeah, I have seen that. You think that Justin Trudeau would ever call an Olympic athlete and not film it?
No.
I don't think so either. I want to get to a note for our friends in Jasper, our dear friends. Many of them are going to be returning home today. That coming up in just a second, plus the flamethrower. People are all fired up this week. But first, I want to let you know that these conversations on Real Talk, these guests that are joining us from Las Vegas and Paris, that doesn't happen without the support of partners of ours like Athabasca University. It's Canada's open university, and there is an AU advantage that perfectly explains why tens of thousands of Canadians have trusted Athabasca University for their post-secondary journey. You can learn more about the AU Advantage online on their website. That's athabascau.ca. You're going to benefit from their commitment to flexible study options, accessibility for students around the world, personalized learning plans, and a supportive community. Apply today at athabascau.ca. At Kubi Renewable Energy, they are helping Canadians cut down on carbon emissions, helping Canadians go green with solar energy solutions to power your life. And the quotes are always free, regardless of whether or not you're looking to put solar panels on the roof of your home, your cabin, your cottage. Maybe it's a small commercial building you have. It could be an office tower. Whatever it is, Kubi does it all, including off-grid solar and EV chargers. You can learn about what they do and request that free quote by visiting their website, kubienergy.ca. And our friends at California Closets are ready to welcome you to one of their showrooms. You know, they're operating out of these showrooms in Alberta that give you a chance to walk in and see in real life. Have your hands around those handles, and then you see what I do every single day. You slam the closet door shut, and then right before it closes, it goes and slowly closes, so you don't wake up your life partner. You don't wake up your soulmate.
I need that.
Johnny, you can't put a
That's
price.
That's going to save me from a separation.
I could spend an hour talking about these closet doors and how they close, but guess what? The drawers close the exact same way. It's just one of the tiny little reasons, and there's 1,000 of them, why I get really excited when I talk about California Closets. That free consultation starts today when you visit californiaclosets.ca.
Yeah, I got a talking to this morning about. I did some laundry last night, a little late for the weekend because I knew I wouldn't have time today, and you know, just the way I was closing the doors and. There was no soft push to them, Ryan. So maybe I'll give Cali Closets a call.
Yeah, I don't think it's a gender thing. Although there is a commonality between our two families that it's the guys making all the noise. And
it's a Jespo Jonny thing.
Yeah, but I find I'm criticized oftentimes. She's like, do you ever think of like just sort of how you close doors? Does that ever? I appreciate you closing the door, but I invented that part. She never tells me she appreciates me closing the door, but it's the volume and the enthusiasm with which the doors are closed.
I really want to make sure it's shut.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that it's shut. Many of our friends in Jasper are going to be returning home today, and it's obviously going to be a very different circumstance, a very different look to the town, and we just want to give a shout out to everybody that's out there and those the professionals. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're weeks removed from that wildfire that's inflicted hundreds of millions of dollars of damage into one of Canada's crown jewels. Obviously, the town site of Jasper and Jasper National Park, and we're starting to see some aerial photos that give us a sense of what that damage looks like. And I know that crews have worked very hard to make sure that the residents that are returning home today, you're going to have to provide proof of residency, and this is not a call out for people to go out there and start visiting and try to get into a campground or show up at a hotel, because it's not that time yet, and we can't wait till it is, and we can't wait to tell you all about that. But the people that are returning home today, many of the emotions that they'll be experiencing are something that we want to acknowledge as well. And just to let you know that the Real Talk community, your fellow Albertans, your fellow Canadians are thinking of you as you make this journey back. It's going to be a difficult journey as people are wrapping their minds around their new reality. And obviously there's not a lot of that we can say that'll take some of that pain away, but there are some resources that we wanted to tell you about. And one of them in particular is just a mental health resource, an episode that we did back on July 31st with Dr. Jody Carrington. And you can find this in our podcast archive, in our YouTube archive. She talks about finding true connection. She talks about the loneliness epidemic. But the first half of that episode, she's talking specifically about the mental health impacts of natural disasters like wildfires. And she has a very unique and specific and heartfelt message for the residents of Jasper, Alberta. And so we wanted to put that on your radar and recommend it if you didn't listen to it. I mean, if you're driving down the Yellowhead Highway and you're heading west, or maybe you've been in Valemount, maybe you're headed east to get back to Jasper today, and you happen to hear this live streaming on the Mixlr audio app presented by California Closets, want to let you know that episode is there. It's our July 31st episode with Dr. Jody Carrington, a really remarkable psychologist. We also got an email from Johnny, not this Johnny, not our Johnny, but Johnny H., who wrote in about the Jasper wildfires. He says, Jasper, I've been a big fan of Real Talk for a while now, and I just wanted to share, you've been talking a lot about wildfires and what causes them, and Johnny's appreciated our coverage on that. He says, but about the ecology of wildfires in particular that nobody's really talking about. He He says, the fact of the matter is that, like, here in North America, the scenario looks nothing like it once did. Now, generally, he says, we kind of have this single continuous forest of pine and spruce where historically we had a more patchy matrix of meadow and woods and scrubland. We had some interesting conversations about this with some of our wildfire experts, and you can find them on the show. You'll see them in there in our archives right around the time of that Jasper fire a couple of weeks ago. There were several different episodes on it. Jonny says, since the grasslands burned every couple of years, the spruce and pine saplings would have burned off regularly, maintaining this matrix. But since their cessation, in other words, since we're putting fires out all the time, the forest is filled in and debris has piled up without any chance of burning off. He says, we've also killed off many of the beavers who moistened the landscape by expanding wetlands. We've suppressed forest fires, which would have been more frequent, but generally smaller, and we've traded them for the now intense and unmanageable fires. By the way, he references, Jonny does, a TED Talk on YouTube, and you can find it. We'll link to it in our show notes here. It's a fellow by the name of Paul Hesburgh. I'm showing it to you on my screen right now. Living Dangerously in an Era of Mega Fires is the TEDx or the TED Talk that Jonny references here. He says, we generally lay the blame for wildfires on whomever started them, which is a bit like balancing a bowling ball on a matchstick and then blaming the person who knocks it off. He says, anyway, I just wanted to write in and say thanks to Real Talk for all the wildfire-related content. I appreciate your focus on the story, and I sure hope that it can lead to some changes in how we manage wildfires in our province. Wildflower meadows make great fire breaks, and they are every bit as attractive as a continuous forest. He says, no, that's my opinion, but that's how I feel. And he says, I would refer that other Real Talkers check out Living Dangerously in an Era of Mega Fires. It's a TED Talk by Paul Hesburgh. We have been hearing from some Jasper residents and decision makers, and it's for the most part off-the-record comments right now, but they're hoping for and they're optimistic around what they're calling a thoughtful rebuild, one that would address some of the housing issues that the town has seen. Many of the people, in particular seasonal workers, support workers, hospitality workers that have been there, the cost of living and availability of housing has been a real problem, a real issue in Jasper. And so a lot of people are hoping that as this town, you don't necessarily ever invoke the word opportunity, because this is a tragedy and people's lives in many circumstances have been leveled, businesses and homes, but you do hope to see a thoughtful rebuild there. And we know that a lot of people, they've already had they had a town council meeting already. Town council has convened again. That was just a few days ago. And obviously it's all hands on deck as that town looks to rebuild. We got you, Jasper, and we're thinking of you, everybody that's going to be returning home today, the day that we're recording this episode, or over the next few days. We have an episode of The Flamethrower coming up here in just a quick second, but while we're talking about wildfires, I do want to remind you that Complete Care Restoration is there. If your family experiences, if your business experiences an interruption due to natural disaster, the team at Complete Care Restoration knows that every day, every week counts. And they've got more than 25 years of experience restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. You can learn more about them and check out their services like hazardous material removal, contents processing, emergency repair services. That's CompleteCareRestoration.ca. They're the ones that built our studio. We've seen them in action, and that's why we recommend them wholeheartedly. And our friends at Friesen Brothers, in particular at their Hinton location, are ready to welcome back those of you that are headed back into Jasper National Park, the residents there. Many of you may be shopping for groceries full-time at Friesen Brothers in Hinton, but they're ready to welcome you with open arms. And while you're in any of the Friesen Brothers across the province of Alberta, there's 17 of them, don't forget that they're proud to be matching funds for the Jasper Volunteer Fire Brigade up to $50,000. Together, we can make a difference, a real difference in our community. You can find out more about that initiative, or when you're in a Friesen Brothers, just let the till operator know. Let the person ringing your groceries through know that you'd like to donate $5. They'll add it to your tab, and Friesen Brothers will match that donation up to $50,000. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Till operator? What do you call somebody that works at a till? Till operator?
A cashier.
A cashier. Yeah. I'm just like the till operator. What on earth? What on earth? Now, this is a bit of a jambalaya this week. Every week, our friends at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, and this is Palisades, Namao, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road, they put out an invitation for you to fire up your heat source. Your hottest takes is what we're looking for. These are emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's the Flamethrower presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, and we are all over the map on this one, and I love it. There should be no children listening to this. Consider yourself warned, and if you are, get on those earmuffs, kids, because Merrick is in wondering on what's going on with gas prices. He says, why the fuck are gas prices higher in Alberta than in the GTA, than in Toronto? And why isn't our government, the UCP, telling big oil to knock it off or else? Merrick, we've been saying it for 50 years. What about this one from Wendy, who says, Jespo, I would like to respond to Charles Adler's comment on August 12th regarding the Amain Khalif boxing controversy and Charles's definition of males and females. This was Charles' famous quote. I've always believed if you're born with a dick, you're a man. If you're born with... Okay. I believe it was the first time anyone said dick on Real Talk, by the way. I wouldn't have put money on that being Charles Adler, but I digress. So Wendy says Charles might be old-fashioned, so to speak, about who he thinks are male and female. I have no idea what being old-fashioned has anything to do with it, but at the same time, he claims that he believes in science. Well, science tells us that the idea of just two sexes is overly simplistic and that sex and gender are not the same thing. That's from Wendy. Thanks for chiming in, Wendy. Gerald is taking issue with me and Pierre Poilievre and Bitcoin. And Gerald says, okay, whoa. Gerald says, when you went on the record on the 2nd of August talking to the strategist and said, quote, technically Pierre was right about crypto. He says, so the earliest that I can find on record of Pierre Poilievre talking about crypto is on March 28th of 2022. And Gerald, that's the date that Corey used on our August 14th episode where Jonny and I talked to you and compared Bitcoin and the S&P 500. That's that same date, right? March 28 of 2022. He says at that point, Bitcoin was about 58 grand Canadian. Today, it's like 94 grand. As I'm reading this, it's down a little bit from there. He says, so if we just look at this, the man's a genius, right? 60% return. Gerald says, but you got to dig into a few things. Number one, he called crypto recession-proof and inflation-proof, and it is not. Gerald, you're right. He says, Pierre was speaking to the country, not savvy crypto investors. And if you bought in early April of 2022 and you saw your investment cut in half by the end of the year, you wouldn't have recovered until December of 23. So there is that. He says, again, Pierre wasn't speaking to savvy investors, and he didn't only stipulate Bitcoin. It was a general crypto discussion, and that could easily lead to people buying less stable coins, some of them which are completely gone today. Gerald's absolutely right about that. And he says, and when Bitcoin actually was a fantastic investment, like in the 20,000 range, or what about the 200 range, he says he was absolutely silent on it, right? If he truly was some crypto savant, people now want to pretend that he is, he would have been telling people to buy years ago. He says Pierre Poilievre guided people with little to no crypto experience to believe that deregulated coins would protect them from inflation, and those who listened and couldn't afford to ride out the massive fall potentially lost 60% of their investments. That's from Gerald. Gerald, it comes back to what I've always said. Do not take financial advice from Pierre Poilievre or from talk show hosts like me, all right? How about this one from Jill? Jill owns a business. Typically, businesses don't want to be named. They don't want to be named on the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Yeah. But I think this one looks pretty good on Jill, so we're going to name her business. It's a pet industry business in our home city of Edmonton called Tails. That's Tails with a Z. And Jill, I'll let you know that that's where our dogs go to get their grooming done. Your team's amazing. She says, I own Tails in Edmonton. And she says, we're building a really cool facility for pets offering a variety of services. And one of them is our pet spa. And after groomings are done, we send out a quick survey asking people how satisfied they were. And Jill says, I just received this response from SG, who reacted negatively to a Pride display that we had in our store a while back. And SG goes on to talk about how, Pride has nothing to do with pet grooming, and says the obsessive overkill of defaming the rainbow on the counters of Tails and trying to represent sexual dysfunction and perversion and pedophilia. Well, anyway, you get the idea, right? So Jill writes into us, and she says, as a straight person who wholeheartedly supports the LGBTQ2S plus community, I find this reaction offensive, ignorant, and very frustrating. Our pride decorations through the month of June are not just decorative. They represent our commitment to inclusivity, to acceptance, to solidarity. They symbolize love and respect and the fundamental right for everybody to live authentically. I mean, this particular client's assertion around sexual dysfunction and pedophilia is not only false, but it's also a glaring reflection of deep-seated prejudice and a lack of understanding. She says, I want to admit that her remarks made me want to say some inappropriate things, so I didn't. But I do find it infuriating to see such ignorance and hate. And she says, she's grateful for the outlet like the flamethrower. Jill says this incident underscores the importance of pride, a sobering reminder that despite progress, there remains a pervasive lack of understanding and a lack of empathy toward the LGBTQ2S plus community. Ultimately, I have to believe that more of our customers aligned with who we are and will replace that particular individual. She says on the flip side, we've had many clients express gratitude for our visible support of pride. It's our choice, and everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but in a world where intolerance leads to harm, it's crucial to stand firm in support of diversity and inclusion. That's from Jill. Jill's business is Tails, and we recommend that you take your pets to Tails and tell Jill and her team that Real Talk sent you. The Flamethrower is presented by the DQs in Palisades, Namao, Newcastle, Westmount, Baseline Road. Go grab a Flamethrower burger from them this weekend. Grab a Blizzard to top it off and tell them you heard all about it on one of Canada's most downloaded news talk shows, Real Talk. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube. Thanks for telling your friends, and we'll see you again on Monday.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.